According to church history, Catholicism began in 33 AD when Peter and the boys decided, among other things, to add a no girls allowed clause to the priesthood. But why can't women be priests? And what happens when a religion decides half of its followers aren't capable of being leaders because of their gender? You're listening to Real Stories, Real Problems with Rachael and Roxanne.
Hi, Rachel. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Roxanne. How are you?
Girls Aloud. Oh my God, like it's a tree house. And all the apostles are up there, in their tree house with the no girls with a Z at the end, all allowed.
That's how it felt watching this documentary, because especially as they are talking to the women who are in this documentary and some of the men who are in this documentary, it was really interesting to see that the church as an institution, like, they were very clear. The church has denigrated women for years.
Oh, yeah.
And in doing research when I was a guest for another podcast, I discovered that the Bible has dozens of really kick-ass stories about women who've done some amazing things.
Oh, absolutely.
They just don't tell you about any of it.
No.
Like, did you know that Hermione is a biblical name?
Did not. No.
She was a woman who did incredible things, built an entire hospital in the name of Jesus and helping the people. Like, there are women in the Bible who were just as strong as leaders, just as strong as entrepreneurs, just like they did all the same thing as the men, but they get no credit.
No, of course not. And I mean, as a Catholic, I've the reason I don't practice it anymore is because of the women's issues. They tell us what we can and can't do with our body. They tell us what we can and can't do in our church. It's like, well, nuns and Mother Superior and abbesses, that's pretty much it. They can't give communion. They can't do confession. They can't give absolution. They can't baptize. They can't say mass. What? We're definitely excluded.
And one of the things that is addressed in this documentary that I think is really important is that one of the women who is the main focus of this documentary, a woman named Anne Tropiano, she has felt called to the priesthood.
Yes.
And why is her calling considered false, but a man's calling is considered the word of God?
Why?
That strikes me as bullshit.
No, you're absolutely right. And the logic, all of the apostles were men. Jesus didn't pick any women. Of course he didn't. Jesus was not going to take mothers away from their children and expect them to wander around with him and sleep on the ground and of course not.
And the other thing is, we don't know that. We know what is written down by people hundreds of years later.
Hundreds of years later.
Books that were written by women that were submitted to be part of the Bible were left out unless they were very, I submit to my husband, and whereas thou goest, I will go, and that sort of thing. So they were systematically left out on purpose. Jesus could have had 40 disciples, most of whom were women. We have no idea.
That's a good point. I mean, just because they never made it into the Gospels and they didn't get, any writings, in the New Testament. And it's odd because, Catholics venerate the Virgin Mary, a woman, more than actual Jesus. So what's up with that, Hope?
Well, and all of this is to say, if you are Catholic and you love being Catholic, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you. Like, I am absolutely not trying to take this away from you. And just as an aside, I love the new Pope. That man...
Yes, this Pope rocks.
If anybody was going to convince me to be Catholic, it is this new Pope.
Oh, I'm considering going back.
And I mean, I'm not considering it, but it's one of those things where, like, my entire life growing up, it was just understood that the Catholics sat in church for 6 hours and the priest molested the kid. Like, that it just was this, you're committing to church for a very long time and the priests are molesting the kids and you can't do anything about it. And it's very like boys club hidden.
It is.
It was one of those things where why would I ever have associated myself with that if I were not born into it? But Pope Francis and now Pope Leo,
Huh?
they're really spinning it to look like a thing that might be worth your time.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I love Pope Francis, you know, and I was hoping, you know, when he passed away, that our next pope would be just as progressive. And I'm thrilled to death that we got Pope Leo. I think he's really going to take the church in new and interesting directions. I mean, the church will never be as liberal as I would like it to be, but you know,
well, here's the thing. The church apologizes for terrible things it did 500, 600 years ago,
Right.
1,000 years ago. So in the very far future,
yeah.
the female pope will apologize for that.
Yeah.
Like,
About the Crusades, we're just not getting around to that. And the Inquisition, you know, that might have been a bit much.
yeah, they're like, okay, it's been 1,000 years. We can acknowledge that was a bad thing.
That is misjudgment.
But yeah, so this documentary is about women who feel called to be priests. And one of the things that happens, and I think they said this was Pope John Paul II,
Yeah, JD too.
that any woman who is ordained a priest is automatically excommunicated from the church. It says something about your religion if the person that is called by God to serve your organization gets excommunicated because they don't have the right plumbing. Okay, so you are telling every woman who does any work in the church, you're telling every woman who shows up to set up chairs or cleans up after service or sets up the communion
Yeah.
that they're not valuable, that what they contribute to the church is not as good as what men contribute to the
And something as harsh as excommunication says to me they're afraid of something.
Yes. And quite frankly, they should be. Because one of the things that we saw in this documentary was that when this started in the early 2000s, the church was like, it's one lady. What's going to happen? She's going to die and that'll end.
Right.
There are now 300 women across the globe who have been ordained as Catholic priests, and by the laws of the church, they have been excommunicated. But their communities don't care.
No.
They still show up and they get communion and they attend services, and these women go to their homes and provide them with last rites,
Yes.
hospice care and all of that. They are getting the exact same experience that they would from a priest with the exact same Bible within the exact same religion. It's just a woman.
And with much more empathy.
Yes.
And caring and more emotional. I mean, I've known some very nice priests, some very gentle priests, some very kind priests. But I think if I'm on my way out, I would like a woman holding my hand and giving me divine unction.
Yeah. So these women are committing their lives to Jesus and committing their lives to the church, no matter what the church has to say about it, which is kind of really kick-ass. It's very, Bikini Kill Rebel Girl, but in a very different way. And, Anne Trebbiano talks about she felt called to be a priest, and she went through all of her options. Like, should she become a nun? Should she leave the Catholic Church and become like an Episcopalian where she could be a minister? And she decided no, it had to be Catholicism. That's the thing that spoke to her. And she became ordained, and she goes by Father Anne.
Yeah,
You can look her up on Wikipedia. You can search Father Anne, and it tells her whole story. And she was going to Mass every day. She dedicated her life to her parish, but when she realized that she needed to be a priest, she just accepted that the excommunication was going to be part of that and became ordained through a church reform movement called the Roman Catholic Woman Priest Movement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is very cool. I had no idea that existed.
That's the thing. Yeah, exactly. And what was beautiful is they showed her ordination ceremony in the documentary. And when the bishop, also a woman, said, I'm now proud to introduce your newly ordained priest. The look on Father Anne's face of such bliss and such joy. And that's the kind of people that I think, definitely is a kind of like, we want these people as priests. We don't want the cranky old, Monsignor with like the long pointy figure with 8 joints on it. No, I've seen some miserable priests who look like they can't stand saying mass, and as opposed to like the young, eager, yay, I'm a new priest.
I think there is a very clear dichotomy between people who became priests because they wanted the power
Mhm.
and people who became priests because they wanted to serve.
Correct.
And so you can tell when somebody gets up if they are all fire and brimstone and subservience and all of that.
Mhm.
They're the power mongers
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
But Father Ann looks like she brings nothing but joy
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
anybody that she is, preaching to or, leading a service for. It looks really incredible. And she has to hire a security guard when she does work. She gets harassed in online and in person by people who are so angry that she is doing this, despite the fact that the official Catholic Church has excommunicated her.
Yeah.
As far as the Catholic Church is concerned, she's not a
Mhm.
priest. She's not officially allowed to do any of the.
Not Catholic.
Yeah, she's not Catholic anymore, according to their whole system. So if you follow that, seeing her should make you think, well, she's not Catholic, so what does it matter? If it instills anger in you, that's a thing maybe to think about.
That's a you problem.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, there has never been a time when I have looked at somebody who I disagreed with and thought, I should scream at them and make them fear for their life. Like, that's not.
You're not very intimidating. But I mean, yeah, if it angers you, ask yourself why. What is it in you? Is it something you've been trained to believe? Is it something your parents instilled to you? Is it something that the male priests you've had all your life have instilled in you? Really sit down and ask yourself, why am I so threatened by this particular thing?
Yeah. And she is not the only woman priest. We saw a woman in Colombia named Olga Lucia Alvarez, who was ordained in 2010, and she was the first woman ever ordained as a priest in Latin America. And her mother had been a Carmelite nun for like a long part of her life, and on her deathbed, told her daughter that she wished she had been a priest, and said she was fully supportive of what her daughter was doing.
Wonderful.
And she is the one who we walked with her through impoverished neighborhoods where she stopped to help people who were invalid, who could not leave their homes, who needed the care. And she works mostly in poorer neighborhoods because that's where people need the most help. And she says working with the poor is a mandate from God.
Yeah.
And
She brings communion to the sick and the invalids that can't make it to mass. They can't walk the 20 miles to where the actual church is.
yep, and at one point in the documentary, there is a quote, we don't build temples because we aren't here to take care of bricks. What a badass.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that is the sign of somebody who is truly religious and truly
Mhm.
is embodying the word of Jesus or God. Or like, when you look at huge churches, these basic monuments to God filled with the stained glass,
Mhm.
all I see, like, there's history and there's beauty and there's, art and architecture to it.
Mhm.
But all I can see is all the people who are doing without that the church is supposed to help.
Mhm.
But that money went into that stained glass window, or it went into the statues that are in the stored
And they
Vatican.
seem to need a new roof. That's generally what always the collection, the extra collection is for that new roof. I mean, considering Jesus did the majority of his preaching outside under the open skies.
Seriously, the man wore sandals, walked everywhere, and went out to like fishermen and shepherds and like he went out to the people where they were and did the thing. And
Right.
you need a fancy gold robe and to stand in front of everybody in the world's most expensive building to tell them about God?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Which is something else Pope Leo is cutting back on the glitz, the glamour, the gold, and everything.
Yeah. Like, I love that man so much.
Yeah.
Every time he has anything to say. And I'm just so excited. And apparently now he has referenced a Lord of the Rings character in an encyclical. So that's gonna be fun trivia.
God, I didn't know that.
Uh,
Nice going, Leo.
but yeah, so these women who are trying their very best to adhere to what they consider the word of God and have been told you're not allowed to do this. In fact, if you try to do this,
Kick you out altogether.
like they can't be buried in a Catholic cemetery. This is going to destroy everything that they ever thought was important within the ritual of the church. And their love of God is so significant that they're doing it anyway. And, this movement has grown over the years. It started to gain visibility in 2002. Now, as of the making of this documentary, which was a couple of years ago, it was a little more than 300 women who have done this. And the women started asking questions because apparently only baptized men can be ordained as priests.
Right.
So these women started asking, why was I baptized? And was the baptismal water that they were giving different than that of what they give to me? If it does not confer to me the same love and blessings and care of God that it does to a man, why did I do it?
And becoming a priest is the only sacrament that's denied to women. We can go through the 06.
And becoming a priest is the only sacrament that comes with housing and a paycheck and all of that. So
tax exempt housing.
Being able to pursue this as a career, to make your living this way in service of God, every Catholic woman has been denied that. The best you can get is you can be a nun and have your food and housing paid for. But that's as close as you're getting. And even that is limited to women in very specific situations.
Yes, they have to be in a convent. I don't think a nun living in a private house gets that paid for.
No, and there are age limits and there are other limitations. I remember at one point I jokingly said to you, have you thought about being a nun?
Yes.
Because you were homeless.
Right.
And you were like, I'm too old.
I'm too old. Oh, yes. Don't think I didn't look into that. Yeah, I'm too old, which is weird because, what about older Catholic women whose husbands have died and they don't have money and they're very devout and they have nobody? If they have children, they're grown and off doing their thing. Why shouldn't they be allowed the religious life? It's insane.
Well, and that is such a two birds with one stone solution, because if you have women who are seniors and are impoverished or who are homeless or who are dealing with issues and are willing to say, hey, I will dedicate my life to the Lord. I would put on the outfit. I would be the penguin. I would go out to the public and I will represent God. You give me a bed and you feed me 3 times a day and I'm good. That is the cheapest labor you're ever going to get, to have the face of your religion out there doing the work. And they say no?
Yeah.
What is the world? I don't get it. But
yeah.
But yeah, so it looks like they think that the church hierarchy sees them as dangerous and considers them actual enemies of the church. And I mean, they're not wrong. Pope John Paul II said that the door is closed to women priests. And these women believe that the church should consider it, especially after all of the pedophilia in the church that was hidden behind church hierarchy. And I mean, everybody I think is aware of this, but when these things started becoming, when the public started becoming aware of this, these priests just got moved around to different parishes. They weren't arrested.
No.
They weren't defrocked. They were not excommunicated. They were just told, you know what, you go over there and try not to do that again, please.
Right.
Which to me, if you're going to excommunicate a woman for daring to want to be a priest, but you will not excommunicate a man for that, that should tell you something. That should give you pause as an organization, as a leader within that organization, as a churchgoer. That should make you think real hard and long about what the church actually is saying and what they're actually promoting and caring for within the organization.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Pope John Paul II was very clear. This is not happening. We're done talking about this.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of his. But the women in this documentary, they talk about how the church sees women as defective, so they can't be priests, but that women are the ones doing 90% of the work in the parishes. Without women, the church would not run.
No, absolutely. I mean, women. And it's not just the nuns. I mean, they are lay ministers. They can, they're communion ministers. You certainly can give communion. They teach. they are missionaries. They, make all the phone calls. They write the church bulletins. They do all of the busy work so that the priests can, concentrate on writing their homilies and, doing their things. Oh, absolutely. The church would grind to a halt.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so these women who want to pursue this are kind of doing it kind of under the cover of, you know, not darkness, but like at one point they talk about in 2002, a ship cruising the Danube River was the site of a secret ordination for 7 women,
Mm-hmm.
and they chose international waters specifically to avoid conflict with any ecclesiastical region.
Yeah.
So they are trying their best to minimize conflict, to make this go as good as it possibly can for everyone involved. And they were excommunicated as a group. They are known as the Danube Seven.
Yeah. Yeah.
And after that, the church confirmed automatic excommunication for anyone involved in the ordination of a woman, not just the woman herself.
Right.
But if you helped with this, you are excommunicated. Um, Despite the fact that women have been lobbying the church for decades at this point to be able to participate in this way.
And another thing that makes no sense is women are saints. Women have been martyred and have been canonized for, their sacrifice for their religion. Hello? If they gave their lives in these god-awful, terrible ways, but we're still going to deny them the right to be a priest? That's just so illogical.
Yeah, and I mean, under Pope Francis, things started to get a little bit better when more women were appointed to positions within the Vatican Curia. And there are now women who hold higher level ranking positions. In 2021, Sister Natalie Beckhart, I think is how we pronounce her name, was appointed as the Undersecretary of the Synod of Bishops, which is a body that advises the Pope. She's the first woman to hold this position and is the most powerful woman in the Catholic Church. So there is slow
progress.
And Pope Francis actually did some work to separate leadership roles from ordination so that women could take on more important roles, even if they were not ordained.
Right.
Which is nice, but it does not address the larger issue of women should be allowed to be ordained.
It's almost like, equal pay for equal work. Women in the Catholic Church are still getting 74 cents on the dollar.
Pope Francis said that Pope John Paul II's ruling on the matter would stand, and he also responded to and apologized for the sex abuse scandals within the church, because those abuse scandals, they damaged the trust in priests, they damaged the trust in the church. One of the ways that you could go about addressing that would be to allow women to become priests. To be able to say that the important thing is that you love the Lord and that this is a calling for you and that it doesn't matter what gender you are, but don't touch the children.
Right.
Seems like a much better way to fix this problem.
Exactly.
It's just so strange, but these women have said that they feel that the call from God is so loud and so clear that they have no choice but to break this unjust law. And I love that.
Yeah.
Like,
so I think that's beautiful. I think it's ridiculous that the church is discounting these women's calling as being less than genuine. And think that it's okay to settle for being a nun or a lay minister or a deacon, or something like that. If they say that God is telling them specifically to be a priest, like Father Anne said, God made it very clear to her, priest.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I am somebody who does not like the idea of a calling. I truly think if you in your head and your heart believe that God is saying something to you, that I think is a sign of hubris, that you would think anything that happened in your head would be from a higher power. And I've seen it abused a lot, especially in 2016 and 2024. We saw a lot of stories about, like, I saw a tow truck driver who pulled up to tow a car and it had a Bernie Sanders sticker on the bumper sticker. And the tow truck driver said he was told by God not to tow that car.
Was he told by his boss to tow that car?
No, he was let to be a
To be an ass.
prejudicial
Okay.
asshole.
Okay.
But to me, I am kind of the opinion that if God is telling you to do things and they align with exactly what you feel is right, and there is no like stopping to talk to God, this is you having your own very strong opinions and slapping God on it to
Mhm.
justify it. But the church does not agree with me on that. The
Mhm.
church thinks callings from God are a legit thing. So if Father Anne got a calling from God, she should be able to be a priest.
Absolutely.
That's how it goes. And if she went to theological school and went through seminary and
Yes.
she did all the things, she should be able to participate as a priest within the church. And the church likes to pretend that it doesn't change, but it has changed a lot
Yeah.
since
Yeah.
the religion was created.
Yeah.
And I think rightfully so, and like they're taking their sweet time about it.
Mhm.
But if the church was acting today the exact same way it acted in 33 AD, it would not function. It would no longer be because nobody would want to be a part of an organization that was still stuck in 33 AD.
Oh no, of course not.
And one of the things that I have loved about Catholicism throughout my life is that it has so strongly embraced science and nature and facts and education. And I mean, Jesuit priests especially, but
The teaching part, yeah.
yeah, it is.
So it's
Everybody I knew who grew up Catholic said that, yeah, God created the world, but he did it through natural
mhm.
selection and evolution and these are things. Um, that science was the way he did it, but he did it. And everybody I knew who grew up like super, super Southern evangelical was like, no, God actually reached his hand down and swirled some water around and did the thing. And like,
Okay.
but for me, the fact that Catholics could look at this and be like, so this is the how and God is the why
Right.
was brilliant to be able to take that step and separate so that you can look at this and say, I can acknowledge climate change and the damage it is doing without that damaging my understanding of God and who
Sure.
and all of that.
Sure.
That's hugely important. And that's a thing that I think has been lost that we really do need to get back.
Great observation.
Um, and that's just part of the church changing. They had to accept and acknowledge those things over time. The church has had to, embrace all sorts of change and now has to go back and apologize for evil shit it did a long time ago.
Right.
It, and especially like I grew up Lutheran,
Mhm.
and so the Martin Luther and the 95 Thesis and the why he was breaking away from the church and all that. Like I'm very familiar with the damage that the church was doing in like 1531. And it is something to say that the church should not change. Yes, they should.
Mhm.
The church should change much faster than it is changing right now.
Mhm.
It's just hard. And then for them to be like, well, no, the church doesn't allow that because, Jesus and his 12 friends, they were all men.
Eh, there's no logic to that at all. I mean, especially because we know Jesus is very protective of women. The woman taken in adultery, kept her from being stoned to death, Mary Magdalene, everything. Jesus loved women, absolutely.
Well, and Jesus went to spend time with the people that society considered outcasts. Tax collectors, prostitutes, like
Lepers.
lepers, people who were disabled, like all of this. There is no world where that Jesus looked at the women in the church who
Right.
wanted to participate and was like, no, no, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not in line with the Jesus who performed the miracles and did the work.
Even when he was carrying the cross, women helped him. Veronica washed his feet with her hair. It's just a remarkable bunch of women in the Bible.
Yeah. These women that are stepping in, they often provide like religious care to the women and people who have been abandoned by the church, which is what we saw so much throughout this documentary.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you've been abandoned by the church and somebody comes to you and says, let me provide you with this religious service, why would you ever turn that away, no matter who it is?
Yeah.
So they are doing really great work. And they're trying to change the idea of what a priest is. So their ministry is totally different. And they believe that it's really urgent to show that the church can be different than what we have seen the church be for at least my whole life. Before then. So they're really working hard to make the church a better place. And in an unprecedented move, Pope Francis asked ordinary Catholics for their views on the future of the church. And there was a meeting, I think in October 2023, to discuss the results, including whether women should be ordained. Now, I've heard nothing since then, so I'm assuming they landed on no.
Right.
But, John Paul said that the door is locked, but as I said in the documentary, when there's a locked door, there's a key somewhere.
Yeah.
So it was so nice to see these women fighting for what is right and fighting for their ability to participate fully in their community in this way. I just thought this was an incredible use of 26 minutes of my time.
Oh, definitely. And it was very uplifting. And listeners, whether or not you're Catholic, please drop in the comments what your opinion is on this. We'd really like to know that.
Yeah, and if you have any stories, like, do you know any of these women? Have you had an opportunity to interact with them in any way? Did you answer Pope Francis's request for, asking ordinary Catholics for their views on the future of the church?
Yeah,
I want to know what you said.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there is so much here with these women and the work that they are doing and the change that they are trying to make. And I am so proud of them. I mean, I'm not Catholic, but I am so excited for them that they have seen what they want and they are going for it with their whole heart. They deserve nothing but praise.
Absolutely. I want to go to one of Father Ann's masses. I really do. I would love that.
Well, we can look her up and see if she's restoring or something. Like, she's not exactly Bon Jovi, but
well, no,
I'd go on tour.
That's all my mass.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, thanks for listening to Real Stories, Real Problems with your hosts, Rachael and Roxanne. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into following your dreams and the BBC documentary, Women Fighting to Be Priests. Join us again next week for a glimpse into another financial problem and a documentary all about it. If you enjoyed our show today, please remember to like, subscribe, and leave us a review on your podcast app. Thanks for listening. See you again next week.
Bye for now.